Hi, everyone, and thank you for spending some of your time with me today. My name is Vince Cardoza, and I head up sales enablement at AutoVitals, a SaaS organization focused on the auto repair space based out of sunny San Diego, California. My experience working for various tech companies in a wide array of roles over the years has given me an interesting perspective with data and how to think about it in the context of critical business interactions. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can apply some of these concepts to the sales enablement role in maybe a less traditional way than we're used to. Sales enablement has a very loose, malleable definition. So what exactly is sales enablement? I know. I can feel the hard eye roll through the computer. We don't need to go into all of it because you are likely getting this message several times over the course of this event, and are probably also busy explaining it to your friends and family when they ask what it is exactly that you do. The truth is that oftentimes this role has us focused on things like content development, tool creation, and sales process application and training. These are typical deliverables associated with the sales enablement program. But there's no reason we have to draw the line there. What else can we bring under the sales enablement umbrella? Cross-functional harmony is an often overlooked but important factor in the success of a sales organization. It is the ever-present balancing act that you are always fine-tuning to get just right. If your enablement team is tasked with providing efficient processes and tools to move opportunities forward and develop their sales professionals, then they should not stop with external facing solutions. Solid internal processes and relationships can be just as important when talking about removing the friction associated with getting a deal over the line or growing the skill set of your reps. This too can fall into the role of sales enablement. So let's be honest for a second. We are talking about cross-functional harmony from the point of view of sales. We are talking about how to keep other departments from becoming roadblocks for deals. If you find yourself asking why your sales team is always fighting an uphill battle with your product managers, why your marketing team can't give you leads you want, or the professional services team never seems to have the bandwidth to support the opportunities you need them to, then you are not alone with these problems. You don't always have to assume these problems will just be there or that somebody else will figure it out. We might as well take control of that situation and see if we can try to eliminate that friction before it slows our opportunities down. Let's take a look at how sales enablement can help to solve some of these problems with a data-driven approach and some key positioning strategies. This is probably about the point where you may be asking yourself, why is this even something that I should be concerned about right now? I have a million things going on and projects to deliver. Well, the answer is pretty simple in its most distilled definition. It's to establish credibility. Establish credibility for sales with internal stakeholders so that you can remove the roadblocks in front of your opportunities and the blockers for go-to-market success. This is the key to have sales looked at in a more positive light internally and take the edge off of some of those more contentious interactions. We can call this internal enablement for the sake of today's discussion. So how do I tackle internal enablement? There are really two pillars to this strategy. First, you need to have very well structured data that allows us to derive clear conclusions and predictions. Second, you need to be intentional with your process and what you do with the data. This includes how you address internal relationships, requests for change, and more importantly, conflict. Let's talk about the data component first. Any request for change that you make, regardless of the type of change or department you are working with, needs to have a data-driven argument to back it. We can't just be right or think that we're right. Both parties think that they're right. Most internal conflict is driven by either personality clash, conflicting objectives, or ego. The result of a request for change is often decided by a number of subjective factors. Sometimes this can be a product of how an organization is structured. I'm sure you have all dealt with a senior leader with a big personality that carries an enormous amount of clout. And with that, a very specific set of opinions on matters. Or maybe there is no funding allocated for the initiative you're pushing. Maybe the division you are requesting something from is shorthanded or doesn't prioritize your project as highly as you do. Conflict arises when it's opinion versus opinion, as opposed to facts versus facts. We'll get into how to present these facts in a moment. But first, let's sort out where they're coming from. You have to have the receipts, if I can borrow a reference from pop culture. Track your wins and track your losses. You need a good profile of the types of opportunities you are winning and losing and why. Who is buying? What do they care about? Remember, these can't be based on opinions or assumptions. You need data that comes from irrefutable sources. Metrics should come directly from your CRM or your marketing automation system. They can come from surveys to your customer base and interviews with customers that have churned. Reputable third-party market studies are also another great choice. There are many ways to acquire data that you can derive meaningful insights from. You need a solid database of information created from multiple sources to give you the foundation you need to be successful in this endeavor. Be thoughtful about how you set up your platforms for data, knowing that you're going to use these to propel your business forward. The most important part of scaling a sales organization isn't necessarily putting the revenue on the board. It's understanding where your revenue is coming from and why. It's also critical to understand where it's not coming from. These are the basic principles we use to analyze our sales teams today. You can also apply these same principles to other parts of the organization too. So now that you have quickly cobbled together a winning data strategy, we can move on to the next part, right? I know we all wish it worked as easy as that, but in all reality, there is obviously nothing quick about it. That's okay though. It's important to be thoughtful in the approach and give yourself some room to modify the structure as you go on. Okay, so now what do we do with it? We craft a bulletproof argument. Your argument should do three things. First, It should present data that cannot be challenged from an integrity perspective. This should include things like market and opportunity data, as well as the estimated cost to implement the initiative or proposal or change from both a financial and human resources perspective. Second, the data should support a key priority of the organization. If new logo acquisition is what the directive is, then make sure you are proving this will drive net new logos to your company. Pretty simple. Third, and this one can be a little tricky sometimes, present it with the backing of another respected leader in the organization. An additional person involved often forces people to choose their position and words more carefully than they might otherwise. Okay, that is the high level. Let's go through some examples of how this internal enablement concept might play out in a real world situation. If you ask most salespeople about what they need to close more business, you will likely get an answer that orbits somewhere around leads. They either want quote unquote better leads or just more of them. It never fails. On the other side, you have some marketing folks sometimes questioning why the sales team isn't performing, especially given the great content that they are delivering. This finger pointing of sorts ends up creating some hostility and friction between the organizations, when really they should be working closely together. If you are looking for your marketing team to give you those highly coveted, quote unquote, good leads, be very specific about what makes a good lead. And most importantly, use data to back it up. Ideally, you can once again pull this directly from Salesforce, HubSpot, or whatever CRM or marketing automation system you're using. And again, the data about leads and opportunities that end up not converting is arguably just as important as the ones that do. Ensure that you are collecting the data you need to make your case. The same goes for any program or initiative you are asking marketing to create, manage, or adjust. Do you want a case study on a specific vertical or a problem being solved? Prove why it's important and why the time, money, and effort should be spent there versus another area. Remember, you need to maintain credibility if you want to get some wins. Come in with the support of another leader in the organization and make the request about the business and data, not about you or them. Okay, now let's look at some typical product team interactions. What method are you using to prioritize product initiatives? How many times have you lost an opportunity because you are lacking a specific feature? How much revenue has been missed out on? Most organizations have a gut feeling for this, but unless you are able to really quantify it, your argument won't hold a lot of water when someone else has a competing view or priority. Most product teams want to support the sales organization, that have been burned by the shiny object syndrome that so many sales professionals suffer from. The most important thing to a salesperson is the thing that is standing between them and closing their deal. Unfortunately, they will often inflate the importance or impact of a particular bug or feature, or make hopeful claims about guaranteeing a piece of business if a feature is delivered. The product team drops what they are doing and moves over to this new initiative, only to end up finding out that their efforts were for nothing because the sales rep overstated the situation. If you want product to reprioritize a feature on the roadmap or consider something new, prove that it's more important and a better use of the resources. You'll find many times that it's not as important. It's just as important to keep those requests away from the product leaders so that you continue to have credibility with them. It's our job to help make the sales team more successful, and a great relationship with the product team is incredibly important to that goal. Let's move on to this old classic one, sales versus human resources. There are two big debates here that most of us are pretty familiar with. Compensation plans are the first, and approval for headcount is the second. Both of these are data heavy, and the burden of proof to get what we need in those situations lies with the sales team. We have the opportunity to help the VP of sales or CRO to put the data together to show why a comp plan should be set a certain way. Or how can you prove that increasing the headcount of your outbound lead gen team will yield results and ROI? It's all in the data set. Oftentimes, finance will be involved in some of these discussions as well. Nobody, and I mean nobody, loves data more than the finance team. And if you can base your argument around something that makes financial sense and limits risk, it is quite literally their job to give you their blessing to move forward with the initiative. How about a different way to look at the importance of data in a cross-functional setting? This one is less about a request for change, more about preventing the misalignments in an organization that often lead to the request to begin with. Let's look at developing buyer personas or positioning documents. Many times, this is looked at from strictly a go-to-market perspective. But in reality, taking the lead on a project to bring personas and positioning statements to life is an excellent cross-functional tool. In short, it can be used to align departments to a common goal, objective, or even a way of thinking. This can and really should be used to ensure that we are selling what we are marketing to the right people with the right message, and we are building what the market wants or needs. Even to go so far as to ensure that we are onboarding and supporting customers the way that makes sense for them and their roles. Data plays a huge role in the development of buyer personas. Many times, these are built based on historical perception from a leader in the organization or other folks in the company. It doesn't take into account current trends and ideas. Do the research and put the data together when defining your buyer personas. This will provide the credibility for sales to lean on down the road when something is questioned or challenged, or if we need to make modifications to what we have. As you saw, the theme here with internal enablement is about establishing credibility and ensuring your argument is beyond reproach. I really only scratched the surface and just looked at a few examples from a high level. But you can probably see how this is a concept that could be leveraged in multiple ways across your organization. If you present your request in a non-threatening, data-based way, you remove that friction that typically occurs between individual personalities who are trading ideas, beliefs, and opinions. training on these processes and way of thinking is really critical to find success. It not only creates this advantage for the sales team, but develops some great skills for the sales professional to lean on in future internal interactions. These same principles can easily be used in their customer interactions and really anywhere they go within the organization or career. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you were able to look at these types of situations with a bit more confidence going forward, and maybe have a different and potentially more productive way to look at the role of sales enablement going forward. Have a great rest of your day, and please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to connect or continue the conversation. Cheers.